Rain poured down on the battlefield, soaking the land in mud and blood. As lightning cracked across the dark sky, Kalen, a warrior bound by honor and driven by revenge, tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword. Before him stood the towering figure of General Morgoth, the man responsible for the destruction of Kalen's village, for the slaughter of his family, and the ruin of all he once held dear. Kalen's heart thundered with rage, yet he fought to keep his focus steady, his breathing calm. Morgoth sneered, his armored figure casting an imposing shadow across the ground, his crimson cloak snapping in the stormy wind. "You think you can challenge me, boy," he taunted, raising his own weapon, a monstrous axe forged in dark flames. "I am the Reaper of Realms. You're but a child grasping at vengeance." But Kalen didn't reply. Instead, he lunged forward, unleashing a flurry of strikes aimed at Morgoth's weak points. The clash of steel on steel echoed through the field as Morgoth deflected each blow, his strength sending jolts up Kalen's arms. Each clash rekindled memories of Kalen's past, his mother's laughter, his father's proud smile, his younger sister's hand slipping from his grip as the flames consumed their home. With a roar, Kalen surged forward again, faster this time, driven by the oath he'd sworn upon their graves. Morgoth staggered back, surprised by the boy's relentless fury. But the general was no novice. He spun his axe and delivered a powerful blow, striking Kalen's shoulder and knocking him to the ground. Kalen gasped, pain radiating from the wound as he scrambled to his feet, blood trickling down his arm. "Stay down," Morgoth growled, looming over him. "Your blood will join the river of the fallen." Ignoring the pain, Kalen rose again, eyes blazing. He spoke his first words of the battle, his voice steady, "For every life you've taken, for every soul you've shattered, I will end you." The words ignited something primal within him. He charged once more, weaving around Morgoth's strikes, ducking under the sweeping arcs of the axe, and delivering a calculated blow to Morgoth's side. The general grunted, his armor dented from the impact. Enraged, he retaliated with a swing meant to cleave Kalen in two, but Kalen was ready. He rolled aside, dodging by inches, and slashed his sword across Morgoth's thigh. The general stumbled, his movements slowing, his breathing labored. Kalen sensed the shift and pressed his advantage. With precise, ruthless strikes, he battered away at Morgoth's defenses, forcing the man back, step by step, until Morgoth stood at the edge of a cliff, the storm crashing around them. Realization flickered in Morgoth's eyes, but his pride held him steady. "You have spirit," Morgoth admitted, though his voice was strained. "But even if you kill me, others will come. Men like me never die alone. You'll spend your life running, fighting, just like this." "Then I'll keep fighting," Kalen replied, his voice calm. "If that is what it takes." He took one final step forward, his gaze unwavering, and plunged his sword into Morgoth's chest. Morgoth's eyes widened in shock, the defiant spark in them fading as he fell backward into the abyss below. As the storm began to calm, Kalen stood at the cliff's edge, chest heaving, rain washing away the blood from his wounds. The wind carried away Morgoth's last, defeated whisper, leaving Kalen with a hollow sense of victory. His oath was fulfilled, but the pain of loss lingered. The ghosts of his family still haunted him, but for the first time, he felt the weight of their sorrow lift, replaced by a quiet resolve. Turning from the cliff, Kalen walked away from the battlefield, his heart as scarred as his body, yet somehow lighter. The warrior's path lay ahead, unknown and treacherous, but he would face it with unyielding strength and the memory of his family as his guide. As Kalen walked away from the cliff, the storm faded into a gentle drizzle, and the battlefield lay silent behind him. He staggered forward, every step heavy with exhaustion, every bruise and cut screaming in pain. He knew he couldn't rest just yet. There would be others who served under Morgoth, others who would want revenge, and his journey was far from over. But for tonight, at least, he would find shelter and peace. He pushed through the forest, navigating through thick underbrush until he found a small clearing with a view of the mountains, cloaked in mist. Setting down his sword, he wrapped a strip of cloth around his bleeding shoulder, binding the wound with a grimace. His mind wandered to the faces of his family, images so vivid they felt like they were with him. Their spirits, he believed, had guided him through the fight. A faint rustle brought him back to the present. He froze, hand reaching for his sword as a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, cloaked and hooded, stepped into the moonlight, her eyes keenly assessing him. "Your fight with Morgoth shook the valley," she said, her voice low but steady. "I saw him fall. Few have survived his wrath, and fewer still have managed to kill him." Kaelin studied her warily. "And you are?" "I am merely a traveler. But Morgoth's fall will bring attention. His allies are ruthless and loyal. They'll come for you, each one as dangerous as the last." Her words held a caution, but something in her gaze suggested she wasn't here to harm him. "Let them come," Kaelin replied, his voice hardened with the same resolve that had carried him through battle. "I have nothing left to lose." The woman smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you and I are alike, warrior." She paused, as though weighing a decision. "If you're wise, you won't face them alone. There are others who have suffered at Morgoth's hands, of warriors, mages, those who lost their homes and families. With the right allies, you may stand a chance." Kaelin looked down, his heart a tempest of conflicting emotions. The path of vengeance had been solitary, a personal journey. Yet the idea of joining forces, of finding others who understood his loss, struck something within him. After a long silence, he nodded. "Where would I find these allies?" The woman extended her hand. "I am Adira. I will take you to them." With a wary glance, he took her hand, allowing himself to trust her, for now. They walked through the forest, their footsteps silent, until they reached a hidden path that led into the mountains. Along the way, Adira spoke of the Resistance, a band of fighters from all across the realms who had once tried to stand against Morgoth, but had scattered after his forces crushed them. With their leader slain, however, they might find new strength, a chance to rise once more. Kaelin listened intently, his heart stirring with an unfamiliar sense of purpose. He had fought for revenge, but perhaps there was more to his journey than just vengeance. He could be part of something greater, something that would honor the memory of his family and save others from the same fate. As dawn broke over the mountain pass, they arrived at a hidden encampment, nestled between jagged cliffs and shielded by thick forest. Warriors, archers, and mages moved among the tents, their faces hardened by battle but their eyes filled with determination. Some looked at Kaelin with curiosity, others with recognition, having heard tales of the young warrior who had slain Morgoth. Adira led him to the center of the camp, where an elder sat by a crackling fire, his robes tattered but his gaze sharp. "This is Kaelin, the one who has felled Morgoth," Adira announced, and a hush fell over the crowd. The elder regarded Kaelin with a nod. "Welcome, Kaelin. You've done what many believed was impossible. But Morgoth's legacy does not end with him. His generals, his soldiers, they remain, and they will hunt you." Kaelin met the elder's gaze, his own resolve unwavering. "Then let them come. I'll fight them all if I have to." A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The elder raised his hand, silencing them. "You will not fight alone, Kaelin. We have waited long for someone strong enough to lead us. Join us, and together we will put an end to Morgoth's reign of terror." Kaelin felt a surge of energy, a clarity that cut through the fog of grief and rage. He looked around at the faces of those who had suffered like him, and he nodded. "I will stand with you all. Morgoth's legacy ends here, and his empire will fall." Cheers erupted around him, a chorus of voices united by a common cause. For the first time in years, Kaelin felt the warmth of companionship, the bond of shared purpose. And as he looked to the horizon, he saw not the ghosts of his past but the dawn of a new future, a future where he would fight, not alone, but with others who believed in justice, in freedom, and in the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. The following days passed in a blur of preparations and planning. Kaelin found himself among people who, like him, had faced loss, betrayal, and destruction at the hands of Morgoth and his empire. There was Edrin, a master of the bow who had once been Morgoth's favorite archer before he defected, his family slaughtered as punishment for his desertion. There was Mira, a healer who had lost her village to Morgoth's soldiers, her skill in magic now weaponized to aid the resistance. And then there was Theron, a warrior like Kaelin, whose raw strength seemed endless, fueled by a quiet rage that mirrored his own. They gathered around fires, mapping out strategies, sharing stories of survival and loss, each story forging a bond deeper than mere alliances. Every night, as they prepared for the battles that awaited, Kaelin felt the weight of his oath lift slightly. He was no longer fighting just for himself, but for all those around him. They were bound by the same purpose, to dismantle Morgoth's empire, piece by piece, until nothing remained. The first raid came at dawn, against a fortress rumored to house one of Morgoth's lieutenants, a brutal commander named Valek. Valek was known for his cunning and cruelty, and his men were fiercely loyal. But Kaelin and the resistance struck with precision, using the element of surprise to overwhelm the guards. Arrows flew in the early light, finding their marks, while Myra's magic shielded them from counterattacks. Kaelin led the charge, his sword carving a path through Valek's soldiers, his movements swift and relentless. As they fought their way to the heart of the fortress, Kaelin's focus narrowed, his mind on one thing alone, Valek. He found the commander in the war room, surrounded by maps and battle plans. The man looked up, his face twisted with shock and fury as he recognized Kaelin. "You," Valek hissed, drawing his sword. "Morgoth warned us of you, a fool clinging to vengeance. You think you're a hero?" Kaelin circled him, his eyes cold. "I'm no hero. Just someone determined to stop men like you." Valek lunged, his blade flashing, but Kaelin was quicker. He parried the strike, countering with a slash that left a deep gash across Valek's side. Blood spilled onto the stone floor, but Valek fought with the desperation of a cornered beast, his strikes wild but powerful. Each blow was meant to kill, but Kaelin deflected them, his mind as calm as his movements were fierce. With a final, devastating strike, Kaelin disarmed Valek and drove his sword through the man's chest. Valek staggered, a look of disbelief on his face as he fell to his knees. His voice was a rasping whisper as he looked up at Kaelin. "More will come. They're already hunting you. Morgoth's empire isn't built on one man, it's an unbreakable army." Kaelin leaned close, his voice low and unwavering. "Then I'll break it, one piece at a time." As Valek's lifeless body crumpled to the ground, Kaelin felt a grim satisfaction. Another link in Morgoth's chain was severed. But the victory was short-lived. As they left the fortress, Mira spotted the flash of torches in the distance, a battalion of Morgoth's soldiers, alerted to the raid and closing in fast. "Move!" Kaelin shouted, rallying his comrades. "We need to reach the forest." They sprinted into the trees, ducking beneath branches and weaving through dense undergrowth as the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The soldiers were relentless, shouting orders as they spread out to search. Kaelin and his group split up, moving silently through the shadows, blending with the forest as best they could. Yet, one by one, Morgoth's men caught their trail, and skirmishes broke out in pockets across the forest. Kaelin fought alongside Theron, back to back, as they held off a group of soldiers. Blades clashed, sparks flying in the darkness, until finally they broke through the line, pushing deeper into the woods. The forest was a chaotic mess of battle cries and flashes of steel, yet amidst it all, Kaelin felt a strange sense of calm. He knew this was only the beginning. Morgoth's empire was vast, his soldiers countless, but Kaelin had allies now, people who would fight beside him, bleed beside him, and face death without fear. They moved with purpose, taking down pockets of soldiers with precision and unity. Hours later, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, the sounds of pursuit finally faded. Kaelin, Theron, Mira, and Edrin regrouped in a small glade, their bodies bruised and bloodied but alive. They shared a silent nod, an unspoken understanding that words couldn't convey. Adira emerged from the shadows, a look of pride in her eyes. "You all fought well. Valak is dead, and Morgoth will feel the loss. But this was only one victory. We must be ready for the next. Kaelin nodded, feeling a renewed strength despite his exhaustion. We'll be ready. No matter how many come, we'll keep fighting. Together. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, Kaelin saw a path forward, not just of vengeance, but of hope. They would continue, each battle bringing them closer to freedom, each strike chipping away at the tyranny Morgoth had built. And with every victory, Kaelin felt the ghosts of his past settle, not as burdens but as guides, leading him toward a future where his oath would be fulfilled, and his people would be free.